These are really trying times. The weight of it is really heavy. Feels like the weight of the world because it's the weight of the world. It's a worldwide pain that we're suffering from right now. And we're jumping ahead of ourselves here because to effectively communicate, we need to first validate and then get on with our response. So I'm going to practice that here with you by saying, your struggle is real, and so is my struggle, because all of us struggle in life. Every human endures suffering because that's what it means to be alive. All of us are going to lose our loved ones at some point, and that is suffering. And we acknowledge that, and we're also so afraid of that we're afraid to talk about real, hard stuff, authentic, genuine things. And when we don't talk about the pain, it permeates everything. And it's really quite poetic, because what's going on in here is manifested out there. So Greta, you're right. We don't care about the environment. We don't care about the environment because we don't care about ourselves. When we stop caring about our bodies and ourselves, our well-being, we can't care about the environment because that's external. And you didn't know that because no one was there to teach you, because we didn't have the skills to have these kind of communications. So I'm sorry. It's awful. It's awful. So I'm really inspired by you for doing that. And you're dealing with so much ridicule and shaming and judgment, and you don't need that at all. You don't need that. And I know you know this, it's coming from the place of fear, because when we're afraid, we make jokes, we laugh, because it's uncomfortable. And when we can't communicate authentically about pain, we make a joke out of it. So people are, older generations, the baby boomers, they are very upset about PC culture. And what they fail to realize is PC culture wouldn't be necessary if we were able to openly communicate about our pain. But we can't, because the culture tells us that we can't. It's not safe to do that. And when we don't feel safe, again, it's very poetic. When we don't feel safe, our walls go up, our defenses go up. And so then we want a wall, a physical wall that makes us feel safer. And it's all in here. It's fear. So it really is a powerful thing, fear is, because it limits us. It keeps us from approaching and appreciating differences, because we're afraid that things will change. And that means if we accept that things will change, that means we have to accept that someday our loved ones will get old and die, and then that means one day I'll get old and die, and we're terrified of that. That's the biggest one. So we don't talk about it. But the awful, awful, awful part about that is when we don't talk about having these kind of thoughts, we feel like we have to suffer in silence. And then we start to convince ourselves, oh, I'm a burden. I can't talk about this. I'm just gonna burden my whole support system if I share this thing, this really real thing. So, and that violence can go either way. It can be towards self or it can be towards others. And so a lot of what we're seeing goes back to those two things, fear and pain. It's the fear of pain. And if we were to put aside the fear and approach and just talk, we would see that we actually don't have that much to be afraid of. And that's easier said than done. I understand that, because we don't have the tools. We don't know how to communicate effectively because no one's taught us. And for that, I apologize on the behalf of psychologists and mental health counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, whatever you want to call it, because we had that information, and because of, again, I guess fear here, because we've all been so afraid, that we kept that information and made it a private thing. When we say that we value helping others, it's our ethical responsibility to help others, but then at the same time, we are not going to give them information. They're going to have to come to us for it. So no one's immune to this. This is a very human flaw, and I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. It never should have happened. It happened. And that is true for every human, because we all suffer. And you may have noticed that I've been really angry and hurt. And on my social media, I've been talking a lot about my pain, but I've been directing it at politics. And the reason for that is it's systemic. There are barriers in place that keep us in fear. And you're going to say that I'm preaching democratic socialism, I'm preaching socialism, I don't want a wall, blah. Like, that's fear too. Just know that, please. Because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's more to people than meets the eye, and we don't know how to check in with each other because we're so afraid. And the problem with that is that we lose really good people. And you may not know this. You wouldn't know this just on the surface, but I lost my aunt to suicide. And that was 3 years ago. And I just now got to a place where I can address it and grieve the right way because I'm in a supportive environment. I had the hope, which is amazing because we need those two things. We need the hope and we need the support. And it's not always financial. I know you're going to say, you're telling me to give my money up. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is all that matters is how we treat each other every day. And we've forgotten that. We've gotten so wrapped up in our fear that every day we're not treating each other with respect. We're not treating each other like human beings. We're not listening to each other. We're not checking in. We're just horrible communicators. And I understand where it comes from, and that's the most frustrating part, because I don't understand why no one is sharing this with people. Like, it just doesn't, whatever. When we're really young, our brains, right, are still developing, right, because we're growing. So the messages we hear when we're really young, our brains are not at a point yet where we can make sense of it. So we take it at face value. So when you tell a little boy that he cannot cry, he takes that at face value. He thinks you're telling him literally He can't cry. So then as he's growing up and he's suffering, he's thinking, he's internalized that. That's what that means. He can't cry. I can't cry. That's weak. I can't cry. I can't talk about my suffering. And then when they're not coping, they affect other people. And then those people affect other people, and the pain spreads. I'm fortunate enough that I had support. And I saw my mom, and I saw all the suffering that she went through in this country. And I could have lost her. But she's strong. She's resilient. And she had me. And I don't mean literally birthed me. I mean, I was supportive with her. I respected her. And my Aunt Karen was less fortunate. And that's no one's fault because we didn't have the tools. The tools were kept secret, and that is not okay. We need to be talking and teaching each other these life skills, because when we don't, the generation after us doesn't have those life skills. Why do you think I can't get around unless I'm using my GPS? Because no one took the time to say, hey, take this, put this down. Let's walk, and I'll show you, get a mental map. And that affects me to this day. I'm finally understanding where it's all coming from, and it's all trauma-based. So our country is, and until we change, will always be suffering, because we have a set of values that we subscribe to, that we say we are the American dream, right? And we're not putting it into practice. So we tell each other, oh yeah, treat other people with respect. And then we don't do that. And we tell each other, if you work hard, you will succeed. And then we have people working their fucking asses off, pardon my language, but I'm mad, and they can't succeed because the system will not allow them to. And then we put people away and lock them up for their whole life. And then they get out and we say, that's not enough? You haven't paid your penance? So it's heavy. It is. And trauma, when it's not addressed, will continue. It's cyclical. It goes into the next generation and into the next one and into the next one, and it gets worse and it gets worse. And that's why you're seeing the environment's not good. But we don't want to believe it, because if we believe it, that means we have to face fear. And that's not okay. Same with mental health. If we speak about mental health, that means, oh no, I'm not strong. And that's not okay. It's very frustrating for me because I have always been a high achiever. I follow rules. That's naturally how I am. And so I've been trying to follow your rules. I really have. And I think I did it, okay? I was born in the US, a natural born citizen, and I spoke your language. I rejected all aspects of my identity, where I come from. I refused to cook my grandmother's food. I refused to speak the language for most of my life, which meant I couldn't communicate with my family member because I was really trying to fit in because someone told me that's what I had to do. And so don't you dare tell me that mental health isn't real. Because I haven't been able to sleep for 3 years since my aunt died. And since those kids have been in those cages. Because when we're suffering, we know what it's like. And we don't want anyone to go through what we have to go through. The second that we make other people others, they're no longer human. We forget that we're all human. The biggest part of our history, this goes back to inauthentic living, is this American dream. We're just sold it, and we say it and we believe it. We've said it so long that we really believe it, and we've never acknowledged the darker side of our history. And the problem with that is we have to take the good with the bad. It's both. We can not only talk about one side of things, because then you're leaving out another part, and that is true. And you're saying that is not their existence, their pain is not legitimate. And that is not right. Because all our pain is legitimate, and you're in pain now. And I know it's hard. So I followed your rules. I'm talking to you. I'm approaching. Now, can you please try to do the same? Thank you.